How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Everyone's having a lovely day. So recently, we talked about, hey, yeah, you got to be careful signing two wide receivers. Two top-end wide receivers, just looking back at history, looking at the data. Historically, it doesn't work out. It hasn't. It hasn't worked out. But, we documented that. We went into it deeply. If you want to see the video, feel free to go ahead and I think it's the most recent one we did. You want to hear more about that. But here's the thing, too. Because we are talking about T. Higgins, we are talking about Jamarr Chase, we are talking about keeping Trey Hendrickson around longer. The other part of this situation, the equation, is just having situational awareness. Having the awareness of the roster build, the makeup going down the road. And for me, I kind of look at this as almost as a catch-22 in a way. Because here's the thing. If you look at this roster, you look at the 22 draft class, the 23 draft class, pending one of these defensive backs don't break out under Al Golden, you really don't have what you would call a plus, an elite tier type of player on a rookie deal that you really want to sign. Now, we don't know about last draft class from Marr, what he turns out to be, how much he needs to be paid, so on and so forth. That could end up being a big deal. But as far as strangling your team against the cap for the next couple seasons, there's really nobody on that list in a rookie deal to say, oh, these guys are going to get big paydays. And it's going to be hard to, and this is the thing with the Jesse Bates situation. Flashing it back. Jesse Bates, Bengals had to let him go. Tough decision. Did you want to do it? Not really, no. He's an elite player. He's great. The problem was T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, all on rookie deals. All were going to need an extension. Trey Hendrickson playing phenomenal. If you wanted to keep him, he was going to get a pay raise. So you had all these young guys that were going to generate top tier money. And the last thing you wanted to do was flash forward to, well, today and be in a situation where Jesse Bates is under contract. Because here's the thing, Jesse Bates is under contract for 2 more years, $20 million a year, whatever. Now all of a sudden you're really crunching the numbers here. What can we do to get a pass rusher? Another offense, we need another guard, we need a pass rusher. And how can we afford this? But that's why you let Jesse Bates go, because you had those rookies. But now you look at the Bengals and say, hey, maybe Cam Taylor-Britt figures it out. Jordan Battle went healthy. DJ Turner. Some of these guys, that's what I said, the corners, maybe they come back, play well, and this team, this defense starts clicking. You got some young guys to pay. But right now you look and say, hey, there really isn't the guy on a rookie deal that, well, Chase Brown's different because he's running back. And so there isn't a guy on a rookie deal that says, hey, you have to be very methodical and very particular with how you spend your money right now because of these players. My example would be the Eagles, right? If I was the, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, you had those guys in your defense right now. You're saying, hang on a second. Now, of course, they're under contract. I can't believe how long they're under contract. So, these guys just 1-2 years in the league. But, you have those guys on your team. Now you're starting to scratch your head and say, well, they're due a contract in 2 years or the year after this one. It's like now you're scratching your head and saying, okay, no, we got to be careful because we want to make sure we can retain this defense too. We don't want to get top heavy at one position. The problem is, and this is why I call it a catch-22. The Bengals are in a situation where naturally you don't want to spend all this money on 2 top receivers when you have an elite top, what I would call top 2 quarterback. Naturally, you don't want to do that because your quarterback can bring up the players around him. He only needs one really good player. You can go ahead and invest in other positions, spend a lot of money in other positions, draft in other positions, pay those guys because you have that sort of guy under center. But the situation is the Bengals aren't really in that situation. They don't have any young, again, besides Mims where he goes, they don't really have any of these young offensive linemen or young defensive linemen that are, up and coming that need paid. And if you go into free agency, it's like, yeah, Trey Smith, I guess, is a premier target. There's 2 things you ask, though. One, why are the Chiefs wouldn't have let him go unless they think the blood clots and whatever else not is a little bit more of a concern that we know about. Because, again, you don't see it very often where you let the young guys go at that age to another team. The other question is, are the Bengals willing to take that on? Saying, hey, there's this injury, this risk to his health is a concern. Are the Bengals willing to pay that kind of money? And if they're not, then you say, okay, well, they're with the big ticket item. Now what? Because that's the situation. That's what free agency is. Free agency in the salary cap world. I know it's different in baseball. The NBA, quote unquote, salary cap, different in basketball about the super teams. But you look at hockey, you look at football. It's difficult to build through free agency. Typically, you get these guys over 30. And guys over 30, you don't know what you're going to get because the decline can happen just like that. But you're going to pay a premium. But the beauty is when you're an elite team, a dominant football team, you do get those guys that are on the veteran, those veteran contracts, you see them get cut and then they'll go sign for the league minimum with a good team. That is exactly what you look for if you're the Bengals. And the thing is, we're really diving into this one. We'll get back to this actually. When you really go into the free agent pool, besides that, you look and say, okay, now who else is going to move the needle? Because two of the top free agents are on the Bengals. T. Higgins and, well, I won't call him a free agent just because he wants an extension to trade request, Trey Hendrickson. But, you know, you look at the top free agents out there, it's like a lot of these guys, BJ Hill's even cracking, I believe, the top 25 on a lot of lists. It's like a lot of these guys where you say, hey, you go out there and you need to upgrade a defensive tackle. It's like he's already on your team. You need to upgrade a wide receiver. He's already on your team. You need a pass rusher already on your team. Addition by subtraction doesn't usually work out the best. So the Bengals find themselves in this interesting situation saying, hey, for me personally, yeah, the first thing I think is open the cap up, give us a lot of money to spend in free agency, build this team. But you can't just go and throw $80 million at players in free agency and expect it to work out. We've seen just historically in sports, it typically does not work out. And again, that's why we say with a salary cap, because, you know, you're the Dodgers, you just throw 8 players all that money. If 4 of them don't turn out, that's all right. We'll just, you know, we got 4 other studs. You know, it covers it up a little bit. But in other sports, you can't afford to do that because you got the cap. So in this situation, I look and think, can the Bengals get, you know, an average pass rusher? Can they get an average guard in free agency? Maybe a veteran guard that takes a little bit less. Can they get that in free agency? Sure. But anyway, that's only going to cost them 20, 30 million. Now you start doing the math and saying, okay, that is, you know, part of the upgrades that we need, but we're going to do some cuts. We're going to have the cap space where you say, okay, we can still keep the T. Higgins, the Trey Hendrickson, and the Jamarr Chase of the world because there just isn't the necessity for the funds. And I think that's kind of where I'm looking at things right now. I'm saying, hey, again, makes sense to get rid of them. But you have to be able to fill that void, and you have to be able to substantially upgrade at other positions in order to justify letting go an above average, a young above average player or an elite player. And in order to justify letting those go, you have to be able to get a replacement for that player that you would call, probably if he's elite, try to get an average player, you know, above average, try to get an average player. You want to get the average player to replace him, but then you also want to say, okay, now we're going to let him go because we're going to fill up 2 positions of need with very good football players. That is how you justify letting T. Higgins go. 2 positions that need very good football players, whether it be young guys we got to extend on contracts or guys out of free agency. Right now, you look and say, where's the window for that? I don't see it. And that's why I say the Bengals are in this catch-22 because it is an organizational thing. It is a, hey, we have to draft better. Bengals have to draft better. Period. To be in a situation here right now, it does, as much as I'm not a fan of it, it makes the most sense to keep T. Higgins, Jamarr Chase, Trey Hendrickson, all 3 of them and pay them because you just, quite frankly, do not have another option. There's nobody that you look at on a team right now. And again, as we talk about free agency, how hit and miss it can be, how a lot of it's just older players. Brown family's not going to go after the older player. You just know they're not going to go sign a 32-year-old to a premium deal. So your options are limited. And the other thing we did not talk about is I know a lot of people kind of get, upset, understandably so, with the Bengals. Hey, they don't pay these guys. They don't want to pay these guys in free agency. They never try to get anything in free agency. You know what? Could be. The other thing is we have to keep in mind, just because they're a free agent does not make them entitled to be a Cincinnati Bengal. There's a top free agent at every position. Bengals aren't the only team that needs that position. There are probably 10 teams knocking on this guy's door. What makes the Bengals special over the other ones, and that's the same situation for every team. And obviously when you see Bengals players consistently being requested to be traded, that's not helping. Joe Burrow is helping. Joe Burrow is the reason these guys are coming. And it's what the players are pretty much saying, if I had to guess, not a players, here's your teeter-totter. You get the Bengals organizational treatment, but you got Joe freaking Burrow. Which one weighs more to you? Joe Burrow's not here, and then, the ladder's going this way. But Joe Burrow's here, it's like, well, now I got a big chance of winning the championship, no matter what. Do I want to tolerate, potential difficulties in my contract negotiations every year in exchange for being on a championship caliber football team? But, hey, what if the Chiefs are offering you that? What if the Eagles are offering? What if the Bills are offering that? Right? And that's the problem we have to remember. It is not just one, there can't be that tunnel vision where this player is just guaranteed to be a Bengal. Bengals didn't sign him because they didn't offer him money. It's like, well, teams, a guy could, Orlando Brown did that, right? I think he took a little bit less to play for the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken. And And players are willing to do that. For me, though, free agency is very rarely a guarantee. It's tough to build through. You can get a couple pieces here and there, but when you need an overhaul, you look at the draft. And until you can get into that position where you're an elite core, you have to kind of try to just keep the players you can. So I'm definitely swaying to say, let's just keep these guys. Let's keep who we can. And when the time comes to, again, if the time does come, and here's the thing, if the time does come, you can always cut guys, save some cap space. If the time comes where you draft some elite players, or you find somebody in free agents that wants to be here, then you figure it out. But until then, you got to try to retain what you can. Nonetheless, that's our thoughts. Love to hear y'all. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see you next time.